So I'm not at all afraid of China. China's about to collapse. No, it isn't. And that's why China actually is the world leader in so many of the current technologies.
If you follow the news about China, you have probably noticed something strange. We are constantly told that China is the world's biggest threat, a rising military superpower preparing to challenge the United States. But at the same time, we are also told that China's economy is collapsing, that it's drowning in debt, trapped in a property crisis, and heading for a major financial disaster. So, which is it? How can China be an unstoppable superpower if its economy is supposedly on the verge of collapse? That's exactly the question world-renowned economist Jeffrey Sachs recently raised. He argues that much of the conversation about China is shaped more by politics and fear than by facts. Let's take a closer look.
You know, you read the press, you are watching the news, and there's a lot of talk that you should be scared of the rise of China, that China is somehow dangerous, that it is rising so hard that we should all be worried about the rise of China. Should we be worried about the rise of China, and what history is telling us in this regard?
Yeah, first, the answer is no, we should not be worried. We should be pleased because this is good news for everybody. The world is better off when there's prosperity in as much of the world as possible. We are not in a zero-sum struggle in the world. This is the most important point about economics. The point is we are not in a zero-sum struggle. So I'm not at all afraid of China. I rather like the food, the culture, the sightseeing, the people, the friends, the students, the colleagues, the ideas, the good governance, the BYD vehicles. I like it all. Why should I be worried about it? That's not a threat. Any of it is not a threat. I can't see what the threat could possibly be. And then I see these lists. Who's number one? Who's number two? And I said, your competitor journal, every article is to reassure Americans we're number one. China's about to collapse. No, it isn't. Not even remotely about to collapse. But the idea that there's a ranking of countries, it doesn't even make sense to think about it in those terms. Now, having said all of that, China's doing extremely well because actually the Chinese governance system has turned out to be extremely effective. The planning system, which I learned as a student, don't do. So believe me, we don't have any planning in the United States. It's just what the president tweets every 15 minutes is our plan right now. But China is in a meticulous process right now. It's been going on for well over a year at a detail level to complete the 15th plan. And the 15th plan, which I've read a number of drafts, has a very detailed discussion of particular sectors, industries, technologies that China will now work on over the next 10 years, because even though it's a 5-year plan, it's a 10-year horizon, that it will work on to develop. And that's why China actually is the world leader in so many of the current technologies that we have, because China's been working on it from a long-term point of view. So that's been a very, very successful process. But a threat? No.
Let's start with the biggest claim, that China wants to take over the world through military power. We hear this all the time, but when you compare China's military footprint with America's, the picture looks very different. The United States has around 750 military bases across more than 80 countries. Its navy operates in every major ocean, giving it the ability to project power almost anywhere in the world. China, on the other hand, has just one officially acknowledged overseas military base in Djibouti. It mainly supports anti-piracy missions and protects shipping routes. So does that mean China has no military ambitions? Of course not. every major country wants to protect its own interests, but it does suggest that China's military priorities are different. Instead of building a worldwide military network, China has focused mainly on defending its own region and protecting key trade routes. One of the most important is the Strait of Malacca, where a large share of China's trade passes every year. From Beijing's point of view, keeping those shipping lanes open is critical. And that's exactly what Jeffrey Sachs points out. China's biggest source of influence isn't military power, it's economic power. Instead of sending troops, China has spent years sending engineers, construction companies, and investment. Through the Belt and Road Initiative, China has invested hundreds of billions of dollars into ports, railways, roads, and power plants across more than 150 countries. Critics say some projects have left countries with heavy debt. Supporters argue that many governments accepted Chinese funding because few others were willing to finance these projects. Whichever side you agree with, one thing is clear. China has expanded its global influence largely through trade, investments, and infrastructure, not military occupation. Now, let's look at the second big claim that China's economy is about to collapse. If you have followed the news for the past 20 years, you have probably heard this prediction again and again. China's housing bubble, China's debt crisis, China's financial collapse. And when property giant Evergrande defaulted, many people believed it would trigger China's version of the 2008 financial crisis. But that didn't happen. That's not because China avoided economic problems. It didn't. The property market slowed, consumer confidence weakened, and growth became slower than before. But China's system works differently. Because the country's biggest banks are controlled by the state, Beijing had more room to manage the crisis better. Instead of allowing panic to spread through the financial system, authorities structured debt, pushed developers to finish unfinished homes, and tried to contain the damage. It wasn't painless, but neither was it the collapse many had predicted. At the same time, China began shifting its economy away from property and toward advanced manufacturing. Today, China leads the world in solar panels, electric vehicles, and lithium-ion batteries. Companies like BYD are now competing directly with some of the world's biggest car makers by producing affordable electric vehicles that are selling around the globe. In other words, while one part of China's economy slowed down, another part continued growing rapidly. That's a much more complicated picture than simply saying China is collapsing. Another reason these predictions often miss the bigger picture is China's huge domestic market. You see, the country has a middle class of more than 400 million people, larger than the entire population of the United States. As tensions with the West increase, Beijing also introduced its dual circulation strategy. The goal is very simple: keep trading with the world, but rely more on domestic demand while expanding trade with partners across Asia, the Middle East, Africa, Latin America, as well as groups like ASEAN and BRICS. Whether this strategy fully succeeds remains to be seen, but it shows that China is adjusting rather than standing still. So how has China been able to make these major economic changes? Jeffrey Sachs believes one important reason is long-term planning. You see, in many Western democracies, leaders often focus on the next election, which makes it difficult to carry out projects that may take 10 or 20 years to finish. China works on a different timeline. Its 5-year plans guide investment, industry, and infrastructure for years into the future. Take the high-speed rail as an example. 20 years ago, China had almost none. Today, it has built more than 45,000 kilometers, creating the largest high-speed rail network in the world. Projects like that don't happen overnight. They require consistent planning and long-term investment. China's political system also places strong emphasis on administrative experience. Many senior officials spend decades working through different levels of government before reaching top leadership positions. Supporters see this as a system that rewards experience and long-term performance. Critics, on the other hand, argue that political loyalty also plays an important role. But regardless of where you stand, China's system has shown that it can pursue long-term national goals over many years. That approach helped lift hundreds of millions of people out of poverty and made China a global leader in industries like renewable energy, electric vehicles, and high-speed rail. So maybe the real question isn't whether China is about to conquer the world or collapse tomorrow. Maybe those headlines miss the bigger story. As Jeffrey Sachs argues, China isn't trying to copy the American model, it's following its own path. The real challenge China presents isn't just military or economic, it's organizational. Can countries built around short political cycles compete with a system that plans 20 or 30 years ahead? You don't have to agree with everything China does to admit that it's an important question. But what do you think? Is China really the threat that many politicians and media outlets describe? Or is the world misunderstanding China's rise? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear your perspective. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so that you won't miss our future videos. Thank you for watching.